I'd like to welcome everyone to the Moose Lake City Council for Wednesday, February 13th, 2019. And I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda is to approve the agenda. Do we have any additions, changes, corrections? Hearing none, do we have a motion to accept the agenda?
So moved.
Have a second? Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Under number 2, consent agenda, we have the minutes for January 9th, 2019 City Council organizational meeting minutes. And number 2, the January 9th, 2018 City Council regular meeting minutes. Any discussion, questions? Hearing none, do we have a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Second. Have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Under number 2, consent agenda, 2B, financial reports. Number 1 is the city accounts payable for December 2018 and February 2019. Number 2 is the city financial statements for January 2019. Number 3 is the liquor store profit loss statement for January 2019. Questions, discussion? Hearing none. Jim, you have anything? Very good. Do I have a motion to accept the financial reports?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 3, public comment. This time is reserved for comments from the public on matters not listed on the agenda. We ask that you please keep comments to 3 minutes. Seeing none, we'll move on to number 4, which is departmental reports. 4A is the police chief. This is a department report for January 8th through February 9th.
Mayor, Council. Busy with the snow, a lot of accidents. Snow banks are starting to get high. It's hard to see out at the intersections. So I just want to just let people know, take their time and go slow. A lot of snow plows out. We had a trooper squad car get hit yesterday on the freeway. So people just have to remember to take a few extra minutes and slow down. So it's a busy month. The main thing that we had was a major assault at the MSOP complex where a client tried to slit the throat of a clinician, or did slit the throat of a clinician. So we had many hours working on that investigation and ultimately charged him with attempted homicide. So busy with that. We had another incident. One of our night shift officers got a call of a suspicious person up at the Days Inn. Turned out he was in a stolen vehicle with a bunch of methamphetamine and felony warrants. The only reason he is in town is just off the freeway. So that's one of the freeway's a wonderful thing, but it also brings us a lot of business. So other than that, it's been steady.
It looks like 176 calls for that time period of a month. That's a lot. Thank you very much, Chief. Please pass it on to the group. Thank you. Public Works Superintendent report.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, yeah, another busy month. You can look outside, you can tell we're going crazy. So it's other than that, it's good though. It's not 40 below anymore, so that's a plus. Water department, water distribution system distributed 3.6 million gallons of drinking water in the month of January. doing that heater up right now, Tim. We had an incident at the well house. We had the heater fail on us twice now. Once on the 30th of January and then once on the 9th, last weekend of February. Tim and I talked a little bit about this, and the second incident happened over the weekend. We haven't had a whole lot of time to discuss it too much into detail. But I guess I'm kind of looking at approval to replace this heater. It's 28 years old, I think, 28 or 29 years old. Cost of a new unit is about $742, and then the labor to install it will be about $1,000.
So you've talked this over, Tim, some money in the budget?
Well, we have reserves to pay for it, but the only reason that we're bringing it up is collectively it's over $1,500. I think technically we've already started it, but because it's over $1,500, if you guys can approve it, then.
I think this is an operational need, there's no question. Do you need are you looking for a motion? Before I ask for, is this one that's hung on the wall?
Yep, this one's hung on the wall. This one actually, it's oversized to the one we have in there. And the only reason it's oversized is hopefully in a year or two, we'll have a new well house, which I'm assuming the design hasn't happened on it yet, but I'd like to go to a different source of heat in there for that building, assuming it's gonna be quite a bit smaller. So this unit is sized bigger. I'm hoping to reuse this unit in the front part of our shop as a recovery heater, because as the big doors go open all the time, we lose a lot of heat. It takes a long time to get that heat back with the radiant heat before. I don't want to just replace it with a 30,000 BTU unit, which is quite a bit smaller, which would do us really no good other than trying to auction it off and basically getting pennies on the dollar for it. So I think this would be the best scenario, the smartest scenario for the city to go after. Trying to repurpose this as we go down the road, so.
Have a motion to accept the purchase of a new heater at the well house.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion, questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
So sewer department collected 10.5 million gallons of wastewater. Our calibrations for our flow meters, that was been put on hold with cold weather and all the snow. Hoping the end of this month or into March, we'll get that taken care of. And then street department, obviously, like Chief Bogenholm mentioned, snowbanks are getting tall, everyone knows it, it's tough to see. Next week, we are planning, if we were to get some downtime here, we are planning on pushing those banks back, either pushing them back, removing them completely. The city now is a snow blower. You'll see a skid steer and a snow blower running around shooting snow all over the place. Trying to lower those banks so visibility gets a lot better than it is right now, because it is quite poor right now. So, but we are working on it, give us some time. Guys have been working a lot of hours, a lot of long, early mornings, late nights, so, but we're definitely on it. One other thing I want to touch on, the work on the shop, the back part of the shop, that's complete. I invite all of you, any of you who want to come down and take a look at it, come on down. I'd love to show you. Pretty proud of it. It's working wonderful. And yeah, we did very well on it. We saved a lot of money on that, so it was a good thing to get done. And then the last thing, sound like a broken record up here, but the frozen water and sewer line policy that the city of Moose Lake has, please look at it. All the citizens, all the residents of Moose Lake, please look at it. If you have any questions, please call me. I'll gladly go over it with you, get you a copy of it if you can't. Get a copy and go over it. Just, we don't like frozen water sewer lines any worse than anybody else. So just please be proactive at it and it'll be better for everybody. So that's all I got.
We have a lot of frozen water coming into the homes right
I
now.
think we got 6 right now. Everybody's back on,
Yeah.
but nobody's froze up permanently for the rest of the winter, but we were able to catch it and either get them thawed out or put back together or patched up or whatever have you. So,
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Pass it on to the crew. Thank you very much.
Will do, thanks.
Technology library report.
Nothing for now.
City engineer?
We missed that one with the election stuff, so he'll talk about some other stuff, but we weren't able to meet because of elections this month.
Very good. Chamber of Commerce updates.
Mayor and members of the council, thanks for having me. So I just want to give you an update on a few things that have been happening with the chamber. Of course, we have Mr. Mayor as on our chamber board now, but I'll start with the annual dinner. Annual dinner was a success. We did make a couple of changes to our bylaws, something that was, again, part of our strategic plan that we did 2 years ago. We wanted to put some definition to the terms of board members for the chamber right now. And people kind of feel if you sign up, you're there forever. And it's nice to be able to have some definitions. So we did put a 3-year term limit and 2 terms consecutively, and then you have to take a year off. This first year, we had to stagger the terms, so we went through and some people had a 1 year, some people had a 2 year, and some people had a 3-year term for this year. So something that's been kind of a long time coming. We also structured our leadership a little bit differently. Again, the same thing as it was with the chamber members. If you stepped up to be in a leadership role, it was kind of deemed not necessarily a life sentence, but you were going to be there for a very long time, which actually impedes people wanting to step up into that position. So what we did is we made it a 3-year, excuse me, a 3-year rotation to the only position that is elected each year is the vice president. And then the vice president moves into president the next year, and the president moves to past president, but it's a leadership team of 3. So that way there's some definition, and you know if you agree to it, it's for 3 years. So those were some really good things. Those are the things that came out of the annual dinner, along with some good fellowship with a lot of people, and we had a lot of fun. So the next event that we just had was Ice Bocce, extraordinarily successful. This year we had 17 teams, 16 teams signed up originally, 17 teams on the day of the event. A lot of people in town, a lot of fun was had by all. We were approached by a couple of businesses afterwards about making it a bigger event and wanting to be a part of it. We haven't had any business sponsorship up to this point. We didn't really want to, it wasn't the point of the event, it's just to really have fun and get some people in town. But I think now that the event has gotten a little bit of notoriety, it will become a bigger event, and perhaps we can even develop it into maybe like a winter carnival for Moose Lake, and with that being somewhat of the premier event. So I want to also extend thank you for the money that you approved for plowing the lanes. That's extraordinarily helpful. There's a lot of setup to it, but thank you so much for allocating those funds. Next, only 2 other things to talk about. We have an area leaders meeting coming up on March 11th, and that is going to be leaders, and not necessarily, doesn't need to be mayors or council members or anything, but just people that are active in the area communities, just to get together and talk about things that are coming up. If you're having any issues that maybe collectively as a group we can all work on, maybe just things that we can all work together on. Last time it was hosted here in Moose Lake. The mayor of Sturgeon Lake did agree to have it at Sturgeon Lake City Hall, so March 11th at 6 o'clock. And then last but certainly not least, we have the Business Expo coming up on May 18th, which has also been a very successful event in the past. Any questions?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Congratulations on the event.
Thanks, it's fun. You guys should get a team. So the city should have, this should be a team. This
I
thing.
tried to get this one, but the chicken's out all the time.
And we need to challenge it. Put something on the table.
Who's the next chamber meeting at? Next chamber meeting is
Oh,
in
next.
Barnum at Rustigan,
Yes, sorry,
so that'd be tomorrow.
yes.
At noon? Yes. Any other questions of the council? Moving on to number 5, previously discussed business. Number A is the 2018 flood. Any items?
Nothing.
Okay, 5B, publishing city annual budget.
On page 38, there's a 1-page summary budget statement. At the last meeting, we had talked about publishing something along these lines. Just wanted to throw this out there, see what you guys thought of this one. Too much information, too little. It's only the general fund. If we get into water, sewer, DMV, liquor, all of that stuff, it's gonna get a little bit long. so.
One page is very next. Council, any
So the Councilor Lauer was talking about this, and I don't know if that meets his expectation or.
I haven't seen it yet, so, you said page 38?
Page 38, yep.
maybe past it?
We're on 32.
It's actually,
Are you on the one that Katie sent out with the second short?
I want something different here.
Here. Just-
This is general summary of it all?
Of the general fund, yep.
Okay. All right, that's about what I'm looking for. Something along this lines.
Okay. So, would you guys like that we publish this then?
Yes, also so move to do that if we need to
Motion, that's fine.
for a motion.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Moving on to 5C, Safe Routes to School application.
We were talking about it earlier. I think we should hear back within a couple weeks here. I think they said late February, we would hear the results of our application for that.
Any questions by the council? Hearing none, moving on to D, primary and special elections.
Just put it out there that we did have a primary and a special election, so we tried to keep the staffing to a minimum, but we will have expenses for that we did not budget for.
No questions, council? Moving on to new business, 6A, Kenwood feasibility report. That starts on page 39. You may not have the same somehow.
So this is the report that I sent out to you guys last month, and the reason that Matt is here is to discuss extending water down Knollwood to the residents that do not have water. The entire presentation is in here, but I think if you want to step up and give a little overview.
Thank you, Mayor and councilors. As Tim said, there should be an entire report in your packet. Maybe is provided even previous to tonight. So I'm not going to read through the entire report, but just wanted to give you a kind of summary of what that is, and then see if there's any questions I can answer. But back middle of last summer, late last summer, the city staff and one of our regular meetings started talking to us about some of the concerns on that portion of Knoll Drive. It's about that 400-foot stretch that is results in a dead end down there. A couple of concerns. One, there's private wells that serve all of the homes. Private wells are shallow, which leads to a high risk of potential contamination when you have very shallow wells close together like that and close to the lake. So that was one of the concerns. The street itself is in pretty poor condition. It's cracked, it's heaved, it's broken up. And then the sanitary sewer itself, the main does not run the whole stretch of the road, so you have some very long services that in today's world are non-compliant. They're services, long runs in the right-of-way that connect directly to a manhole. And then at the bottom of the hill, it's, I believe, some of the oldest main in the city left, original clay pipe, which typically is prone to leaking. So those were the three things that were brought forward to us. Then last August, you authorized us to prepare this feasibility report. So we started out kind of looking at three options. The first is just to do nothing. and meeting with staff, we decided to not look at that one any further as it didn't meet any of the objectives. We then looked at the potential to just directionally drill a water main and connect services to each home. That would solve the water main issue. It's overall a lower cost, doesn't address the sanitary sewer. Ultimately, it would make the street a little bit worse because we have to dig up the street in 7 locations for the 7 services. So then we looked at a full reconstruction of the water, the street, and the sewer, and extending the sewer up to the top of the hill, so the main was the entire path. So that is the route that we based the feasibility report on. That is in front of you. It's based on the full reconstruct. So, again, it's about a 400-foot long stretch, so the sanitary would be a brand new main, 7 new services, eliminates your non-compliant services, and it eliminates the old clay pipe at the bottom of the hill. Water would be brand new water main and water services from the main out to the right of way, or actually in this case to the home, I'm sorry, because you're on wells. I did not include in here an abandonment of the wells. That would be something that each homeowner would have to do. And then the street would be a brand new street. We agreed on what a typical section would look like, but a curb and gutter section with bituminous class 5 and sand underneath that. So based on that, and this is included in there, we came up with a cost estimate of about $338,000 total for all of that work. About $193,000 of it are for the roadway, $51,000 of it of sanitary sewer, $82,000 for water main, and $11,000 of drainage. So then we were asked to look at what funding could potentially look like for this, specifically to an assessment. And I believe it was asked of what a 100% assessment would look like. If 100% assessed over 7 lots, you're going to be about $48,000 per lot. Typically in an assessment project, you would look at the value, the benefit to each lot, and that benefit should be at least what your assessment is going to be. In this case, because it's a preliminary report, Tim did not hire an appraiser yet to look at that, but the gut check says it's not going to be close. That $48,000 is going to far exceed what the benefit to each lot would be. To confirm that, again, you'd have to hire an appraisal firm. So you'll see in my recommendations, I would recommend that you seek other funding sources if you wanted to do the full reconstruction. The one caveat to that is if you do get a 100% petition, then you certainly can move forward with doing a 100% assessment if all 7 landowners would sign a petition and agree to that. Otherwise, typical means would be looking at what your city assessment policy is. Other cities would, in a project like this, would probably be an assessment, would be typically like 30% for reconstruction items of sewer, streets, etc., and more for new construction. So if you were to look at your assessment policy and potentially implement or update it, wherever you're at with that, that might be one way. Again, otherwise, looking at using your utility funds or getting all 7 landowners to agree to it. So that's kind of the overall summary of the big packet that you have there. So I guess with that, I'll open it up for questions or.
So the big thing with this is when we started talking about it, we of course started with if we're going to move forward with this is going to be 100% paid for by the homeowners along that road. Especially since there's one property owner in particular that's having an issue. Whatever the cause for that and whatever our belief in the purchase of that home, he's the only one that is currently having an issue. I will say that an assessment of $48,000 for this is pretty steep, and we already didn't have buy-in from not quite half. I think when we first brought this up, it was right around 4 or 5 that said that they would want to move forward out of 8. Since then, we found out that one of those 8 actually, within their title, is able to connect for a lesser fee. So now it's down to 7, and I think we probably had approval for 4 out of 7. So when we look at, even if it's not 48,000, my suggestion would be that we pick a different number, maybe 30 or something like that, and offer that to the homeowners and say, are all 7 of you willing to move forward with this? And if not, I'm not entirely sure how we pay for this one. We've been talking about putting together a CIP for roads, a capital improvement list for roads. I highly doubt that this one's gonna rise to the top, but it is technically a road project. We could use sales tax to do this, we could use our sewer funds to do this, but I think we all would prefer to use those funds for maybe a larger traveled road than that. So as it stands right now, I and our engineering firm will need to know where we would like to go from here. It's a lot of money.
I'd hope that you reach out, like you mentioned, the recommendation, I believe you said, was the assessment is usually around 30%.
Well, I would just say, I work in other communities as city engineer, and the 2 communities I can think of off the top of my head, our assessment policy is 30% gets assessed for reconstruction, and I think 50% on new construction. I don't believe your assessment, I don't even know, Tim.
We don't have
You don't have an assessment policy yet, so you'd have to create your assessment policy, but that would be kind of a standard. And where does that come from? Roughly speaking, around 30% you can typically justify in the benefit to the property. Just kind of a little rule of thumb, you'll see most assessment policies are around that range because the math ends up working that way.
So if we move forward with something like that, and this isn't exact, because there is a portion that is new that we could assess at a slightly higher rate, but just for easy math, we would basically be assessing right around $100,000 of this project without having to argue. We could just assess $100,000 of this. So we would be left with trying to figure out how we are paying for $237,000 of this project. And then on top of that, there's a number of homeowners down there that are seniors that are gonna be able to push this assessment off for at least a number of years until they sell their homes. And in which case, we would need to come up with an even higher amount of money to pay for this project. So this is coming down to, is the city willing to pay $200 and some thousand to run the water main down this road?
Depending on the cost of the home or however the assessment is, roughly around 14,000. If you go even to all the 7 homeowners, somewhere around that. If you do 100,000 and you have 7, that'd be around 14,000. But I don't know, the assessment is not done evenly like that. It's done by the property value.
No, we would do it by, in this case, because they're connecting the water, we would just divide it by the number of homes that are.
So roughly around $14,200.
Right, or you could
Just
do it
roughly.
by linear foot.
Yeah, so Mayor, if you were to develop an assessment policy, you'd probably have a couple different options for the council to vote on. One would be a per lot, one would be a front foot. There's different ways to assess. In this one, it would make sense to just do the per lot, I would think. The other thing that's a little bit different with this one is there is no water there now. It's not a reconstruction for the water. It wouldn't be uncommon to pass 100% of the water cost along in a situation like this. Because even
What
as
is the water cost?
about 82,000. But even at $14,000, just think of it in terms of if you have to go replace your well and dig a new deep well and make all the connections, you're gonna be at $14,000 very quickly. So it does make some financial sense from an assessment standpoint at the level you just mentioned, just for the water main alone. That doesn't even count the street or the sewer.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I noticed they'd have to, cap off their old stuff, that's gonna be a cost to them too, or?
I think Carlton County would probably pay for that. There was quite a few grants when we started, what was that report that Gene, was the drinking water, the wellhead protection program? There's quite a few grants for capping wells.
Well, just so they'd be aware that those other costs would come along with, their pocket on top of an assessment.
And then there is the cost of the
Hooking up.
plumbing inside of their basement to get it all to work, so.
So maybe a closer figure would be something along the lines of $180,000 would be for the city to pay for if the $82,000 was passed along to the residents, and then 30% of the remainder was assessed. There would be about $179,000 left over that the city would need to pay. Which, here again, it could be 20,000, it could be $1 million. I just need to know if this is something that we want to do.
And in either situation, I think if you're gonna go with an assessment, my personal recommendation to you would be to create an assessment policy that you have on file. So the next time you do a project, we don't have potential conflicts with what you did previously. You will see that in other places, if you assess one project one way and then assess another one a different way, and you don't have.
Those are with like new utilities, so what he's saying about when
Our own
it's.
person, I thought we didn't have one, but
Yeah, so on Park Place Drive, we did an assessment,
Right.
which was for a new sewer, so 100% of that, actually, no, I don't even think it was 100%. But then on Park Place Drive, when they put in, or not Park Place, the new development down by like John
Quick
Rock
Trip.
Drive and all that stuff, that was all assessed and the developer paid for those things because it was brand new.
so that was all by contract
Right.
agreement.
Right.
Well, and the other reason is the council has approved us assisting Tim and Phil putting together a CIP for your road, water, sewer. So when that is complete, you're gonna have kind of a top 5, top 10 projects you should be looking at. Those are all gonna be reconstruct projects. So how you would wanna finance those, fund those, it would play very well into if you had an assessment policy, then we could lay out, give you a better picture of how they might get paid
How
for.
far away are we away from that being completed?
We're close. The street portion of it is done. We're getting a little bit more info between Phil and I with the water and the sewer, but I'm hoping that, in the next month it's done.
I think we would want to wait to see all that before we make a decision on this, because that may change our mind on some of it.
Well, I think we first need to really reach out to everybody again, now that you got some numbers, and say, hey, this is about what you're looking at. Or,
So if I add those ones together, we assess 100% of the water and then 30% of the reconstruction. That's a $22,000 to $23,000 assessment, which frankly, that's what we told them initially, was it was gonna be right around 20.
Yeah, the hardest part on this one for an appraiser is going to be, they're on a private well right now that is shallow, close to a lake, and you're gonna get city water. Those are two very different things, but how you appraise it is kind of the question.
Yeah.
So do you wanna table this until we get the CIP done?
I don't think there's any rush right now, is there? We do have the one person that
Other than him?
he does use the water, but it's so long, you can't use any of it for any reason.
Does not use the water in that house.
And they're living in the house.
No, it's a vacation home
Okay,
and they have a,
all right. I think we have time to see the full report. And then bring this subject back up again. Does that make sense to the council?
Yeah, but again, I think it's about the other people too, so I think
We could do that.
reach out to them again and say.
Where we're at right now,
Yeah, that we're
Before
still
we
thinking
can
about
go
it.
in. Right.
You know, that it was a while ago we reached out, now that we have this report, it's given us a little better idea. You know, the four might have changed their mind, or the three might have changed their mind, or, you know.
We have more well problems, we don't know,
Yeah.
so.
I guess I'd just like
Yeah.
to have them have the information that we have, so they can, you
Okay.
know, give us some.
Consensus with everybody to do the notification, which makes sense to me too. All right.
Okay.
Any questions, any further questions,
Do
anyone?
we want to look at in the next, 3, 4, 5 months, gathering data now on the creating an assessment policy then?
I think if you give us 3, 4, 5 months, we'll have one done, if that's what you guys want.
Well, it sounds like that's a recommendation that we're getting, that maybe we're falling short, that it would be helpful for this council and maybe future councils, I don't know.
They've put them together before, and they've provided us with examples, so honestly, it probably won't take that long.
If you want to move forward, in 2 weeks, I'll have a draft to Tim. Says here's what one would look like. A lot of it is, the League of Minnesota Cities has a nice website too, and it has nice recommendations, so we have kind of a boilerplate, if you will, that we've based off of those recommendations that we give out. And obviously, it needs your specific input if you've got unique situations that you want to make sure are addressed.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. The nice thing about an assessment policy is, yes, it lays some of these basic ones out, but it lays out ones like if you have a corner lot, how do you deal with that for frontage? Because you could end up doubling the assessment of a property. So it lays out some instances that we probably haven't dealt with here before.
And again, if you want to implement the CIP, which is all reconstruction projects, it would, I would think be to this and future council's benefit to have kind of a template of how you're gonna do that, so it's done easily.
Well, that sounds fine to me. Just one other thing I want to bring up to the council, we talked about it and threw it out, and talked about and threw it out, and that was a direct drill, which you brought up. And I believe that was at 150,000 2 years ago, before your time. And I don't think we have gone back to get an estimate on that again. I think that was 2 years ago that we looked at 150,000.
We did a very rough estimate, and I'm not gonna remember the number off the top of my head, but I'm thinking it's pretty close to what you just said, because we have 80,000 in here as part of the big project.
Yeah.
So drilling is a little bit more expensive, you still have to spot dig. All of your mobilization, everything else gets wrapped into that cost, so it's probably still a pretty similar number to what you
Okay.
just said.
Just for the council, I just want to bring it up for the council's
Yeah.
knowledge.
Which if we, with that, if we assessed 100% of, because it's a new utility, it would still be $20,000 of an assessment. It's just the city wouldn't pay for anything, and we would still have the old.
Give the city
old-
time to, because we're gonna, at some point, you're gonna prioritize list of streets, sewers, water, everything, hopefully. I'm just bringing that up because it may solve it in the short term, but give us time in the long term to look at Knollwood as a total project. So-
Yeah, and I think we're hoping that in about a month, we'll present this report to Tim and Phil at a regular meeting, and then I'm assuming Tim's gonna ask to present at the council meeting and at least go through the process of which we did, and then the top recommendations. So I would imagine that it maybe, I guess it'd be probably the first April meeting or something like that, we might be.
We would probably do it like we did this one, where I would give it to you 1 month, and then have you review it for a month, and then have them present at the next one.
Yeah. So just to give you an idea of timeline on that, what it's looking like.
Any other questions for the council? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council.
Do you have the business?
Number
card?
6B, Historical Society Building Expansion.
Hi. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Dan Reed. I
Thank you.
am a member of the local historical society and tend to work on a lot of these projects that we've done. Everything from the Ottumwa Pavilion to a granite marker for the First Finnish Methodist Church in the United States on 27, to a lot of the bus tours, fire maps, all kinds of archiving, that sort of thing. We have an active group of over 200 people. And even though we have a history of borrowing some money, is that actually the indebtedness at this time is relatively low, because we have active members, many of them literally contribute thousands of dollars to the Historical Society for programs. Just this last year, we did a mural. We did the Red Cross building, moved it into town across the rail grade, and we reconditioned a Beckwith pump organ that was a survivor of the 1918 fire. The combination of costs on those particular projects is probably in excess of $20,000. Not much of it came from grants. Most of it was from members providing volunteer hours, money, whatever it took to have those particular projects accomplished. We're at a crossroads now where the building we have, the group has been so successful that so many things are occurring within the complex that we, at times during the year, we have literally several groups climbing over each other, doing research, working on projects and that, and have very little space. We have many of our archive materials in 2 containers behind the event center because there's no room in the building. We're just getting into the process of setting up a computer network, so in time we'd be able to index and archive what we have, the material that we have, which is vast, and the hopes in time of making it public and be able to have the public access it through the computer. Takes a lot of work, a lot of time. We have a person now that's going to dedicate a lot of her effort. She's on computer whiz, and she's working to set up the beginning parts of that program. The reason we need the computer in some of the personal stuff that I've been doing, the computer setup and the indexing of material, is Ross Anderson and I have been working for about 5 years, going through the Moose Lake papers. First the Moose Lake Star, and then it was joined with the Barnum paper. The Barnum Gazette became the paper that we know, the Moose Lake Star Gazette. We worked for 5 years. We've been working on it, making copies of everything in those papers that we think are of historical value, filing them, and a lot of the papers we went through were probably the last people that are going to go through them because they crumbled as we were copying them. Indexing is needed for that project. We're only in 1920 and we have files and files and files of hard copy. What next has to be done is to do an indexing, so if you have a particular subject, you're able to go to that particular subject, like the Majestic Theater that Mr. Lauer's grandfather ran up where H&R Block is in that area. Before and after the fire, he had a theater there. He loved theaters, loved vaudeville too. And as I look at the faces here, several of you have used the Historical Society's ability to find historical matter and bring it to your attention, help with the city to find everything from pictures to archived material, so you have a historical record, not only of Moose Lake, but the whole area. With the problem with space, we looked at a number of funding possibilities. The reason why we settled on getting state bonding dollars to have the state give us basically a grant for a wing on the building, rather large one, which it would include classroom, work centers, a place to put our computer network, a place to store some materials, and that is, it was a good way to get started on an addition. The building that's there now, the event center, basically started as a shell and a slab, and it's taken a lot of hard work by a lot of people to get it, so now it's close to being complete. Some work is needed yet in the kitchen. A tremendous accomplishment. Almost all volunteer, raising money, events constantly going on, support from the communities. I know, like our township always sends a major donation every year because the Historical Society is important to our region. Now, you can quibble whether we are asking for enough money or not. We're in a unique position in our building because the heating and the electrical area and that is right adjacent to the area that is going to be added onto it. It's right next on the wall. And so doing those, normally when you add on to a building, you have major concerns with electrical and heating and that sort of thing. We have the capacity to do that rather easily, not doing handstands, but with a lot of volunteer work. We need the shell of the building, and we all feel that it's kind of a jewel of Moose Lake and the surrounding area. It was started in the 1960s by people like Walt Lauer is still alive. You know, Floyd was over at the municipal, Claude Poston, bunch of them. Many of their projects was going around and taping fire survivors or old timers that had lived in the area their whole lives. Those tapes are in danger of being lost because now we have to spend the money to have them transferred into modern technology, and they're very brittle. It's a constant race with time. But going back to the building, I think we are in a unique position with Mike Sundin and to push it along. And it's a small enough project that when they're picking projects, not everything has to go to Duluth. You know, just when you think, well, why are we getting, say, $600,000? Well, we think nothing of it when Duluth keeps sucking millions and millions and millions of dollars. Tourists and all, you know, a lot of those facilities, the university, their roads, it goes on and on. I think it's our turn to have some state bond money come here, give us a start to work on that building. It's such an active, vibrant group. I am completely confident that the city of Moose Lake, because we need a fiscal agent, would not be exposed as far as us being caught short on what we're going to do. It's an important asset to our community, and we're eager to move on and keep expanding, because it's good for the community, it's good for the region, it's good for every one of you sitting there. Thank you. Any questions?
Not yet.
Not yet?
Let me talk a little bit about what's happened the last, like 12 hours, and then we'll see if somebody has questions. So, on page 57 in your packet is a letter from Steve requesting letters of support, which was great. I think everything that you said about the Historical Society certainly makes sense. The depot, the museum, all of it is fantastic. None of what I'm going to talk about brings any of that down. I absolutely agree with you. The piece that we need to talk about is last night at, I don't know, 5, 6 o'clock, Representative Sundin and I started talking about the fact that the Historical Society is not a political subdivision and therefore cannot request state bonding. A second piece to that is that we own the building. So what Representative Sundin and I talked about is we would need to be as a political subdivision of the state, we would need to request state bonding, we would need to be the fiscal agent, and finally, we would ultimately be on the hook for this project. Not to say that you couldn't raise the money, not to say that they wouldn't raise the money. I'm just saying that we are the body that all of this would fall on. I think that less than 24 hours is probably too much time to say that we want to pass a resolution for a project like this. I do have a resolution on the table for each of you to review that would do that. I would not recommend that we pass it tonight. In total, I think the project is right around $1 million. I got a letter from you that you had sent to Mike Sundin that laid out some of the budget a little bit more. I think the project is just under $1 million with a state bonding request for $600,000. So basically, it's the city of Moose Lake requesting state bonding for $600,000. Now, there's a couple pieces. One is if we were to receive state bonding, that puts us on the hook for doing the project. I think we saw a little bit of this when we did the local road improvement stuff. We almost didn't do the local road improvement projects, and the general idea is if you receive that money and turn it down, that's kind of a black eye that the state's gonna remember for a very long time. So I would hate to have that happen. The second thing is, I do not want us on the hook for this project. I think it's a great project. I can totally support that it might need to happen. I just don't think that the city wants to be the lead for it. I also don't think that we want to do this without anybody knowing anything about it more than right now.
How about options? What are we talking about options?
Well, the first option I would say is let's scrap this for this year and let's maybe work on a plan for doing it in the future. The second option that I would say is I think that we're getting closer and closer to the Historical Society being truly that Moose Lake area historical society. Right now, the city of Moose Lake owns it, but an option might be to talk to Carleton County and see if we're getting to a point where maybe Carleton County wants to take the building over and be that political subdivision for projects like this, to take on some of the responsibility for this building. I think some of those might need to be conversations that we bring up before we do this. The other piece is that with all the conversations going on with Carleton County and the Historical Society that they have up a little further north, and the potential for bringing it down here, you know, it's not gonna happen right now, but I could certainly see that changing in a year or two, and then we would be looking at additional expansions to this building. So I just think that all of this is a bit rushed, and I don't know that we want to jump on board right now.
Yes, Danny and Steve here, are you guys open to meeting with Carleton County, your board, and city representatives to try to look at options for this?
We, go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, absolutely, we're fine with meeting with you guys, Carleton County Board, and us. I think that'd be great. Talk over, I had a meeting that Tim and I were in this afternoon. We talked about this, you know,
Yeah.
eventually turning this building over to the county to get it in a bigger political body that's got more quality. Like we talked about, $600,000 in the county's budget is a lot less money than $600,000 in the city's budget. And I have no problem talking about any of that or doing it, if that's what we need to do.
Would you need to bring that to your board for discussion first before you answer that here with us?
Yeah, we probably have to
Yeah.
set up a meeting and invite everybody to come.
We did have one.
Yeah, we did meet with several of the county commissioners and part of the county historical society board, and that was less than fun.
Yeah.
And I don't think that what I would not, it's not what I'm suggesting, and I know it's not what Ted is suggesting either. I'm not saying that we turn the building over to the Carleton County Historical Society, and I don't think that that's what you all would want either. I'm simply saying that we meet with the Carleton County Board to talk about just the county owning the building, and it would be the same setup that you have now. It's just the city owns the building versus the county owns the building, which I think as it gets bigger and bigger, like your presentation, it's becoming more of a Moose Lake area rather than the city of Moose Lake.
That's our name, Moose Lake Area Historical Society. We can have our board get ready for a meeting, and invite everybody.
I think you're at the Plymouth, at the kind of the start of this expansion, which I'm sure you don't have any set dates, you just want to get something going.
Well, politics is a funny thing. And I've worked on a project trying to get 8 miles of highway south of Cromwell fixed for 35 years now. Now, there is a possibility it might slip right through this year. We even had the money once, and Duluth stole it from us to finish the Piedmont project
Well, sure.
in 2002. Wouldn't that just make fry your eggs? So, you know, we have the right representative pushing this at the moment. He's now a chair in the House of Representatives. We have Mary Murphy, who has been our representative at one time or another, is heading the bonding program out of the House. And then we have a unique position with Rarick, now elected a Republican senator, and the Republicans control the Senate by 2 votes, which you can say, that's not so good. Then otherwise, it can be an opportunity for our area. And so it's kind of, it's my view, it's almost a perfect storm to do. And the track record is, you know, the group started with a shell at that convention center museum. Natalie tells a story about it needed sheetrock inside. So she cooked up the idea that she was going to have people buy sheets of sheetrock so the inside of the building could be done. So there's a lot of ingenuity within the group here. And I can smell that it's possible now. as a bonding project. And we certainly are not, have ever thrown money around. And we've been geared into many projects. That doesn't mean we can't be focused just on building, because at the moment, we're really stuck with way too crowded for what we do there. If it happens that there's a marriage from the north, we don't know that, but my personal opinion is that we should go for it. The county board of commissioners gave approval, sent us a resolution on it in support of it. Letters are coming in, the Kiwanis are in favor. And it's been talked about for a long time. It's not, the idea started to be really gel when we tried to work out more cooperation with the Carlin County Historical Society, and their feelings were, well, we're just taking them over. And so we're here now to make this particular facility a success story. And like I said, I think politically it's the time to push. And then Highway 73 might go slipping through too, you know. So it's your call on it. I think for what the money we're asking for, if costs are a little bit too high, well, I guess we can start raising money for sheetrock again. You know,
Yeah, I
if
think
what
we
we need,
You know, I think we all understand it, and I think all of us love the Historical Society, and when we first hear it, we think about it, we don't jump on it the first time that it's presented to us at a council meeting. But I know that, is this the year that you have to submit to the state for bonding? Like it's every other year.
You can submit.
What cycle are we in?
the
Has to be
bonding,
done.
the bonding is done normally on the second year of a legislative session, but
They did nothing last year.
they did nothing last year.
Right.
And they're of the opinion, and I can't speak for them, but I've heard political gossip that they would like to do a little here and there all over the place.
Right. And there's been plenty of examples of bonding projects that are in the off year too. So
Yeah.
you can submit bonding projects whenever.
I'd like to hear from the council members.
It sounds like a great idea that if you're gonna get together, if you can set up that meeting between the Historical Society, just the board members of Carlton County,
Right.
not the Northern Historical Society, and representatives, possibly the mayor and you, and see where we can go with this to help get them in the right direction and get this project going as soon as possible.
Just to clarify, are you talking about the county commissioners?
Yes,
Yes.
county commissioners, I'm sorry, yes, yeah.
The only thing that I want to be clear with you all here is, it's not that we don't want to move forward with the project, but if we do that, this project is not going to be submitted for state bonding this year, which is what I'm suggesting, that we don't submit this project for state bonding this year, and we use the next year to meet with them and to discuss that. So that's kind of the big topic. I don't know if, even if we pass this next month, if that's enough time to fully submit this.
Well, if it goes in for bonding, how long does, you don't get the money for how many years after you're approved?
No, that,
You get it the next, you get it right?
yeah, you get it, I mean, it's not like they cut you a check after they approve it, but you have a certain amount of time, whether it's a year to start the project or something like that. But probably the worst case scenario is that we got it and then didn't do it. So it's, if we're putting in for it, we're saying that we're moving forward with this project.
Let me ask you this, which, no matter whichever way we go, which I think we need to have that meeting. As it is right now, what would it cost the city of Moose Lake?
We would be on the hook for $1 million. Now,
Well,
the
let's say-
state,
Let's say they covered
the state would, that's if the state gives us $600,000, then we would be on the hook for.
400,000.
It wasn't quite $1 million, it was like 900 something.
That included a 24 by 40 storage building to replace the 2 trailer storage units up there, which we have scaled back out of the bond request because Mike told us that we had a better chance of keeping it at the $600,000 level. We're not worried about that extra building. That isn't all there.
I honestly, this is, part of the problem
Mike to
is.
be there at the meeting also?
Maybe.
Mike to come to it?
Part of the problem is quite frankly, I don't even know enough about this
I understand.
to do anything with it.
I think we had consensus here that we'd like to try to hold that meeting to see where that goes with the commissioners and with Historical Society, and we'll try to do that as quickly as possible with all members, you know, when we don't know what's possible for them yet, meeting-wise. So we'll give that a try. So we will.
Please stay open to the possibility of doing it this year, because I always view things politically. It happens that you have a 42-year member, Mary Murphy, in the House of Representatives, happens to be in charge of that bonding money. It has to come from the House in order to make a possibility, because they're the ones that approve expenditures. And then, of course, you have Mike there, and that, I like to do work more on a sure thing, and this is kind of the perfect storm at the moment, so I don't mind having a meeting and discussing it and talk about all the ramifications and that, but I wouldn't want to close the door on leaving it as a possibility this year, because I have hopes for 73, and that's been a 35-year project.
We understand.
Yes.
If I could ask if we could get more specific numbers, because at first I was hearing $1 million, now I'm hearing more like 600 and some odd, so, I mean, that's quite a difference, so if we could.
But they do bond,
Really?
they give a percentage, and then you have to come up with the rest.
Well, no, they said they cut off the
No.
storage shed.
Yeah, they give the 600,000, and figured in that. I had assumed that we were going to ask for a little over 700,000, because that includes engineering costs and a 10% buffer, but
So this-
things
the
have
bonding-
been flow.
So the bonding request for the 600,000 doesn't cover engineering or any contingency?
No, but it's just building.
That could be a third more.
That makes me more nervous than.
Well, yeah, just so we can get some
Before, yeah.
specific numbers, because we're hearing different.
They figured it would cost about 100,000 more from the 600,000.
All right, well, I think we have consensus, and we'll make those efforts, and appreciate your being here tonight and presenting that.
Yes, thank
Do you have anything, questions, anything else for us?
If we could meet sooner rather than later, that would be nice. And the one that has the most inflexible schedule at the moment is Mike Sundin. He's right up to here and a lot of this stuff, so.
I don't know that we need Mike for the discussion that we're gonna have.
You can make the call to him, and if he can, he can, and if he can't, he can. We
Who have
understand
you guys
that.
been dealing with the county for the most part?
The whole county board. And
Oh, you've just been
the
speaking to county board?
Economic development.
Yeah.
They wrote our proposal.
When we went to county economic development, she used a figure of $268 a square foot, which included contingency money for the contractors and engineering and stuff into that $268 a square foot. So,
Right now, the whole EDA board is in the air, as you probably know,
yeah, we know.
and it may fold at the county level. I'm not sure what's gonna happen there.
No, I think they're
They're
just
trying to do
deciding
the
on-
process of even reorganizing it. I
Yeah.
don't know how that's gonna, what that's gonna look like.
Mhm. Well, we got our proposal from there, and moved it along, so if we're gonna meet sooner rather than later, that would be good, let us know. And
All right,
we'll see what we can do,
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
among other projects. Thank you for your
Thank you.
time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
move on to the next item, 6C, Historic Society Gambling Permit.
On March 30th, they're doing bingo, so.
I'll make a motion, we approve the gambling permit for the Historical Society.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. You got your gambling permit, Steve.
What's that?
Your gambling permit has been approved.
Oh, thank you.
Moving on to D, Moose Lake Brewery off-premise sales permit, ice hockey,
That kind of rolled
which has
already.
already happened.
Ignore the date on the application. We kind of need to approve of these two. And I had a conversation with the brewery about this, so.
And so we're gonna do D and E together, or you want them separate?
You can do it either, whichever way you want.
E is the Moose Lake Brewery off-premise sales permit for a fishing contest. There are two permits.
No problems with them in the past?
No, and the insurance is on
Yeah,
the
it's-
third page there.
I'll make a motion, we accept the two, Moose Lake Brewery off-premise sales permits.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions, comment? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to F, Public Works sander and plow quote. This is a state bid.
Well, the quote is part of the state bid.
I got you.
So in the budget, we put in for a new sander and a new plow in Phil's CIP funds. And this is for purchasing that, and the reason why there's only one is because it's the state bid.
So we're good with budget,
Yep.
and this is already on the budget, so
Yep.
it's round we have to go through. Have a motion,
So moved.
have a second?
Second.
Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The Public Works excavator rental quotes, this is G.
Yeah. So this is for solving a problem that's kind of a problem in a couple of areas. That area that's behind the shop, that's woods, we'd like to clear that area for all of the material and storage and everything that's in front of the shop. We'd like to move behind the shop and then put up a gate so that people can't access it. And then the second piece is that I think we have culverts where Byron wants that parking lot to be. So we have, and pipe, we have storage where Byron would like the parking area for the trails that he put in, but we don't have anywhere else to put things right now. So we need the excavator to clear the land in the winter while all the leaves are off there, to get everything cleaned up so that come summer, we can really clean it up and move the material back there.
This is the stuff that's stored right along the trail,
This is the eyesore that's.
right along, I got you.
So
What
the-
is that quote for?
The first one is from Titan for $2,631. The second one is from CAT, and it is $3,050. I think we have to double that because we wanted it for 2 weeks, correct?
Correct.
So you don't double the delivery and pickup, you just double the week rental, which Titan is still the cheapest one, but.
They're equivalent machines?
Yep.
Okay, I'll make a motion, we accept Titan Rentals for their quote for the excavator for 2 rental.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Questions, discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to H, council direct deposit.
Can we please move you guys to direct deposit?
Direct me? Go ahead.
Mine?
That's fine.
I don't have a problem with that.
I need a voided, well, I'll let Katie.
You don't need anything.
I'll let Katie, she does the paperwork.
Yeah, I'll just email everybody the paperwork and then next time you guys are around, just give me a voice check.
Whatever. Everybody okay?
I was seeing, and when I first got here, I was told that you guys were like opposed to this.
Yeah, everybody said that you guys didn't wanna do this, that's why we've never brought it forward.
It's a problem, people don't talk to the people that are involved.
Well,
Yeah, there you go. Now we did, and done. Got it. Okay.
All right, moving on to I, local board of appeals and equalization, April 4th, 2019.
So that's the date of our meeting. I will say this, there is now zero of you that is taken the training and registered. Don't look at me like you're confused. 0 people are registered on the list to be able to be at this meeting, which means that we will get this meeting taken away from our city council and it'll be held with the county if we don't get trained on it. I promise you, it takes no more than 10, 15 minutes. It is incredibly easy. I will send everybody the email again.
But the date for this is what, April?
April 4th.
April
And
4th
I'm working that day, so.
at 10 a.m.
Yeah, I'm working days that day.
How about everybody else?
Yeah.
I might be very busy.
Still doesn't slink back. How about this? Everybody look at their calendars, let me know if you have an issue, because if we need to move it, I need to let the county know as soon as
How
possible.
many do you need? One person? I'll
I
have it
need
done
3.
by then. You need 3 people with it?
Have to have 3 people.
You have it, don't
I don't count, isn't that ridiculous?
you? Yeah, the lady at Carl's Corner.
Walter, this is your opportunity to step forward and complete the training and be a team player.
What day is April 4th?
Tuesday?
I have no idea.
And I should be able to do that.
You gotta take the test first.
Thursday.
It's a Thursday.
Thursday. So anyways, I'm gonna send out the email as soon as they send it to me that has the link for the training. Please take the training.
I can do that, it's just not gonna help this year.
It's not gonna help this year, but it's good for a few years.
I have tried it in the past, unfortunately, they shut down the training link certain months, and those are the months that I haven't been trying it.
Me too. It was
That's
July.
user error on my
It was
fault.
July.
Yeah, it was user error on my
Yeah.
fault, but I have tried to take the training.
I understand that totally.
And they canceled the ones that they used to have in the cities.
Yeah, they
We
did.
were gonna go to.
You know, if only somebody came to like City Hall every single day where they had office time and a computer,
Yes,
that would be sick.
that would be it, wouldn't it?
Greg,
What now?
you're on the table.
Greg, you're one of 3.
1 of 3? We'll give it a serious try.
Serious.
I guess I have a computer at the city that you could use.
All 3 could take it at the same time on the computer.
Okay, 10 minutes is all it takes, is that?
Maybe.
I think it's an hour class.
No, it is
15 hour?
not. Don't even say that. I got one person last year to take it.
And he's gone.
He's gone.
Okay, thank you very much, and you'll get the information out.
Yes.
Moving on to J, computer replacement quote.
So this is a big quote, but it is in our budget to replace these computers. The second part is we have to replace all of the remaining computers by 2020, which this is to replace half of them. We're gonna have all the remaining ones ready to go January 1st so that I can cut a check for it of next year. But the other piece, the third part to this is that they're not all from the general fund. So we're replacing, I think, 2 in the DMV, 3 in the liquor store, There's 2 for the general fund and 1 for somewhere else. I can't remember at this time, but they come from a few different departments.
Very good. This is what has been programmed as part of the budget, so. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion, we accept the quote from CW Technology for the computer replacement.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to K, cable coordinator position.
All right, on your desk, you have 4 handouts. The first one's the resolution that I talked about earlier. You can discard that. The second one is the cable coordinator position. And basically, this lays out, with Steve leaving, we no longer have anybody that is employed with the city to take care of the public access channels, to record city council meetings, to update content, to video content, which kind of leads to Rory. Rory has filled in and is recording it right now. He knows how to use all of the equipment. He films many events throughout the community. I think that this is a good fit. The cable budget has money available, so. Yeah.
This is a salary.
Yep, well, it would be, it's salaried with like a monthly stipend. So one of the things that we talked about is there's some events that Rory's at videoing, like events that he might be there for, say, personal reasons. He might be there anyways. There's some events that he only goes to just to provide content. And it could get kind of gray if we started trying to pick and choose which ones were personal reasons and which ones for the cable coordinator position. So I just said, let's make it a stipend, a monthly stipend, and then we don't have to worry about that.
We have a motion by the council.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second
Open up for questions, discussion.
How much money was saved by the position being eliminated?
About 30, a little over 30,000. Of which 20,000 has an operating transfer to the DMV to cover the added part-time position that we added there. And then, yeah, so we're still saving money.
Any further questions? Comments? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to L, library director position.
I think the personnel committee and one library, is it the personnel committee and one library? They're all kind of run together.
Yes.
Met and interviewed a number of people for the library director position. Shelby was selected from all of the candidates. And this is the proposal from that committee is that we hired Shelby, I don't know how to pronounce her last name, Lon Rogentin, for this position.
Very good. Motion by the council.
I'll make a motion, we accept, am I accepting this, or what do we, or?
Yep,
hire-
we need to approve to hire.
We approve to hire Shelby for the part-time librarian position.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Open for questions, discussion?
Yes, the wages of this individual compared to what the library director was making,
Less.
how much?
About 5.
Okay, and then part-time position accruing vacation and sick leave. I guess I haven't seen that in the past at a
Yep.
part-time.
Yeah,
We have
we-
a few part-timers. I think they take like a percentage, and so if she's a .75.
So it's
I would take-
prorated?
Yes.
All right, those were my only questions, thank you.
Any other questions, discussion? I think all the past librarians that were part-time also got the same benefits, which they aren't much, but they're, at least there's some.
To me, I just wanted to be able to, so everyone understands, there were financial decisions made and a person and their family left the community. This is, it's $5 less, and I just kind of wanted that to be out there.
Sure. I understand.
Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to M, liquor store manager position.
That is the third handout. This one was one member from the Personnel Committee, one member from the Liquor Committee, met and reviewed applications. So actually, the Liquor Committee and the Personnel Committee reviewed applications, and then that was narrowed down to one member from the Liquor Committee and one member from the Personnel. From everybody that was interviewed and reviewed applications, it is recommended that we hire Kevin Coyle for the position of liquor store manager.
Do we have a motion to accept liquor store manager recommendation?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Open it up for questions, discussion. Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Has it recorded? Motion carries. Thanks for all involved. Moving on to 7, reports and correspondence. We have none. Do you have anything, Kim, late entry for that? No. Moving on to number 8, committee and board meeting minutes. 8A is the Moose Lake Power regular meeting minutes of December 18, 2018. Number B is the Moose Lake Park Board meeting minutes for January 14, 2019. 8C is the Moose Lake Park Board meeting for February 4th, 2019. Are there any questions or discussion on the board minutes? I just got one question. Will the library board minutes come into the next month?
I don't rate them.
I understand, but somebody should be submitting them, I would think.
I'm not sure who, did Steve rate them?
I think Steve did it, and I'm trying to think of when the last time we met, if we even had a. No, you know what, the last time that we met was to review applications, so I don't think that we.
Okay.
I don't think that we recorded that meeting.
Okay,
But yeah, we'll get it worked out.
thank you. Any other board minutes that, I don't think there's any.
The fire district, the fire district was
district.
last night.
Yeah.
The Economic Development Authority didn't meet last month, so yes, there are
Okay.
more than this, but
All right, very good,
these are all
thank
that are
you.
available.
Excuse me, any questions or discussion on the minutes that are here by anyone? Hearing none, moving on to announcements. Regular Moose Lake City Council meeting Wednesday, March 13th at 4 p.m. right here in the chamber. Moose Lake Economic Development Authority Wednesday, March 13th at 12 p.m. in the conference room. Moose Lake Water and Light Commission, regular meeting Tuesday, February 19th at 3 p.m. in the Water and Light office. The Moose Lake Housing and Redevelopment Authority Board, March 11th at 11 a.m. Hillside Manor office. The Moose Lake Area Fire District, Tuesday, March 12th at 6:30 Emergency Response Center. Moose Lake Park Board meeting will be March 4th, 6:30 right here. Library Board meeting, March 11th, 1 p.m. in the conference room. Anything I missed? Hearing none, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.